And you mentioned at the beginning of the show that so many people seem to be converting to Catholicism right now, which is so wild.
Yeah.
I was Catholic before it was cool.
Yes.
I was preaching Christ in the Catholic Church.
I feel actually that I was kind of in the first wave of these big converts. Now, I was a cradle Catholic, but I reverted. I was an atheist for 10 years. And I do think something was in the air that maybe I sensed a little on the early side, but I kind of consider myself as having, now I've been reverted for whatever, like 12 years or something, 13 years. But I do think it was this thing. I think it was this thing that was happening, you know.
And what is this thing?
With the Holy Spirit, really, you know, but a dissatisfaction with new atheism, which by that time was played out.
Yeah.
It only came about because of 9/11 and because of the church sex scandal. And it was cynics basically took that as an opportunity to make claims that they could never back up. So that was totally played out. The materialism was leading people to do a bunch of depression drugs and kill themselves. And the ideology of the spirit of the age was leading people to castrate themselves and do all sorts of weird sex stuff and kill their babies and all the rest. So that all led to a state of profound despair. And so, you know, then the gods of the copybook headings come back. And then the actual God who rules above them all, you know, is recognizable again. And so that was all building. I mean, Obama was kind of peak in millennial liberalism. And when after his time was over, you really can't separate what happened in the political sphere with the rise of Trump and Brexit and Orban and Meloni and all of this kind of, and migration restriction, you know, the recognition the nations can and should, in fact, have some borders. You can't totally divorce that from the recognition of spiritual and anthropological realities.
So when you say that people are, by the way, I'm just dropping ash all over your chair.
I do it all the time.
I mean, look, we have one ashtray over there. It's far too far away.
It's too far. I mean, better maybe on the carpet. We'll set the whole studio on fire.
Yeah.
That's what C.S. Lewis used to do. He used to, if you ever toured the kilns, he and his brother would smoke pipes, and they just ash them on the carpet and like, grind it in with their feet. That's a little too bad.
He was a bachelor for quite a while.
Yeah.
If he maybe he was married sooner, he wouldn't have done that. Yeah, so we said that a lot of young people are converting to Catholicism. So what is it about Catholicism that you think people are turning to then? I have an answer, but I'd love to hear yours. Yeah, because I actually love how you phrase that, because we all know anecdotally people, maybe ourselves, who hit a point of despair and we ran out of runway and we turn to God and we say, have mercy on me, a sinner, and our life changes. So what you're saying, it sounds like, is large swaths of, or maybe not large, but significant portions of the culture have done this. As a culture, we've become more and more despairing. So what is it about Catholicism then, do you think people are turning to, or are we overplaying that?
No, we're not. No? We're not overplaying. I mean, it's primarily these reversions are a Catholic phenomenon, and there some are Eastern Orthodoxy. Some of the mainline Protestant churches have basically were about to shut their doors, and now they have a few people coming in, and so. But it's happening broadly, but it is chiefly Catholic. There was a paradox of error that took over. Probably peaking about 5-10 years ago, which is an extreme materialism and an extreme Gnosticism. And the extreme materialism said we're just meat puppets, you know, we're just, our joys and our loves and our desires are just synapses firing off randomly, a story told by a fool signifying nothing. And then the Gnostic error said, actually, also your bodies don't matter at all. And you can be whatever you think that you are, and that was the transgender ideology and the obsession, the fetishization of technology and the virtual world. And that reached its apotheosis during transing the kids and COVID, when we were all living on Zoom. And we found out that, you know, hugging grandma as she died through a Zoom computer wasn't really going to satisfy the longings of the human soul. And so we realized, okay, well, materialism's not the whole answer, because I still have longings, I still have desires, I have a sense of eternity. So it's not just my body. And just pleasing my body isn't actually making me happy. And then we found out the Gnostic thing is wrong, because we found out, no, we actually have bodies, bodily needs. We can't just live in computers. So the Catholic Church, in the fullness of truth, recognizes, no, we're body and we're soul. And we're both of those things. And we're like the beasts in that we're bodies, and we're like the angels in that we're intellect. And our faith is incarnational. So I remember I was talking to a friend of mine during COVID. He said, Michael, I kind of like COVID because the churches are closed, but, you know, that means we're just all watching the church. He's Baptist. Says, we're watching the church service at home. And it's really nice. A church isn't a place. And I said, well, it's also kind of a place. Like, it's not a place, but it's kind of a place, right? And it's kind of, and so I think the fact that Catholicism is sacramental and is the fullness of sacramental theology is attractive, because we're starting to recognize now, I need to be in the physical world. I started a cigar company in part because people need to be in the physical world. Yeah. And I think that answered some of those errors. I think modernity, in its constant innovation and denigration of the past, tearing down statues, has been found wanting. I think people want a connection with their past. I think we live in a deracinated time, and people want some roots.
I want to know what that word means.
It's a great word. I mean, uprooted, an uprooted time. Yeah, deracinated.
That's excellent. Yeah, that's right.
It's a great one. If you say it at a cocktail party, people think you're very, very smart. Yes.
I'm going to forget it in about 5 minutes right now.
But we're living in that rootless time. As a matter of ideology, we have been cheering that. I'm a citizen of the world. I'm whatever, Screw you, Dad. I don't have any connection to I'm just a radical individual. I think individualism has been found wanting, especially the kind that came out of the Enlightenment. And I think we have to acknowledge that came as a consequence of the Protestant Revolution, the notion that we're primarily individuals with entitlements and rights. I think that's been found wanting. I think we recognize, as Aristotle did, we're the social creature, we're a political animal, and we we're born to families. As the great philosopher Kamala Harris said, we're not fallen out of a coconut tree. Right. We're born to families, and we have duties, and we have obligations, and we have limits on ourselves. Yeah. That limitless utopia it shattered. And Catholicism is a religion that recognizes natural limits and recognizes apostolic succession and has authority. And it just recognizes all the things that are intrinsic to human life, and it perfects them in grace.
If you have not heard of the College of St. Joseph the Worker, you need to. Their program combines the rigor of an elite bachelor's degree with the practicality of training in the skilled trades. And their tuition model is structured so that students graduate without crippling debt. collegeofstjoseph.com/mattfrad.
During the 90s, there was a surge of Protestant converts. Yeah. Dr. Scott Hahn. Yeah. Jeff Cavins was a Protestant pastor, even though he was baptized Catholic. We could go on and on. But a lot of them talked about the shock they felt when stepping into a Catholic parish. They had read their way into the faith, and they get to the church and they're wondering, why isn't this the way I had envisioned it? And maybe for them it had to do more with how Scripture led them into the church. Mm-hmm. But I wonder today, the Gen Z folks who may have been, what was that word?
Deracinated.
When they come into a Catholic church today, what do you think they're expecting? I presume it's whatever they see on Instagram, all those glorious photos that look nothing at all like the parish in the local town.
They show up to some suburban octagon.
Well, that's my fear, right? But have you heard from Gen Zers who try to go to the Catholic Church and then they're confronted with something and they're not sure how to reconcile it?
No, I meet a lot of them because I'll meet them at church, people who are traveling, who are interested in converting, and maybe it was something they saw on Instagram or a podcast or, there's something going on. And they'll say, yeah, I was raised Baptist. I was raised Presbyterian. Often I was raised with nothing. That's really what you get. And I have a friend of mine, a great guy, evangelical Protestant pastor. His kids are converting, to Catholicism. I mean, it's just and he's cool with it. It's happening. And I find it's not that they're disappointed.
Well, especially as you say, if they're coming from nothing.
Yeah.
Then even the standard Novus Ordo might be very impressive to them with its structure and ritual.
And might serve a purpose, actually, too. And this is one of the nice things I'll say about our Protestant friends, is people can blame a lot of modernity on the Protestant Revolution, and I think a lot of that is fair. But given that now we've reached this point in modernity where people don't know anything anymore, and we've given up all the great treasures of our cultural patrimony. Sometimes to get back, you kind of need those guys as a bridge. I mean, there were a lot of Protestants that I liked reading and listening to in my reversion that I was more compelled by than some Catholic theologians who I just couldn't quite get there yet. Yeah. I stumbled over Marian dogmas and things like that, as a lot of people do. And so for the same way, if someone comes in and I say jump into the deep end of, a really full, high missa cantata and just go for it, you're going to get the full thing. But maybe for some people, going from nothing to a really well preached and reverently celebrated Novus Ordo Mass, even if it's at some ugly suburban monstrosity church from the 70s, maybe that's going to be a little more familiar, and it can lead you into other things.
Thanks very much for watching that clip. You can click the link below if you want to watch the full interview, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.